If you're feeling a little bit out of control as a construction company owner, this episode is for you. Hi, this is Eric Anderton. My guest today is Al Levi. Al is the president and CEO of 7 Power Contractor. 7 Power Contractor is a consulting company to contractors. And the great thing about Al is that he has over 25 years of experience running construction companies. And he did that before he started his consulting business. And he has many deep insights into how to run and scale a successful construction business. We talk about things like marketing, finance, the structure of your org chart, visual accountability, how you actually structure your physical building to make communication effective within your organization. We talk about how to do succession planning successfully, how to make sure that you have a deep bench of talent that will be able to take over from you as you grow your business, how to deal with some of the issues that occur when you have 2 talented people, but only 1 seat for them to fill. So there's many different insights that we cover. Al has a very effective way of communicating the essentials for a construction company. And so you'll find this interview to be extremely helpful to you. Give us a rating or a review wherever you get your podcasts. Enjoy my conversation with Al. And as always, thank you for listening to Construction Genius. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Al, welcome to Construction Genius.
Thank you.
Tell me about that condo builder in Montreal.
Well, as a background, I never built a condo in my entire life.
But you do have a background in contracting, right?
Yeah, but I have all my, residential, commercial, industrial background in a pretty tough market, New York. Uh-huh. And by the way, a New York union shop, which
wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So when people tell me, Eric, we can't do that here in Kansas, I go, really? Because in a New York union shop, and I dragged my 2 older brothers and my dad up the hill with me. So yeah, it can be done.
Nice.
So
nice.
This condo builder basically came to me. He was recommended. His problem was that he had grown to 85 million a year in sales, which sounds like a good problem, except that he was now down to 35 million a year in sales. But he still had the staff of 85 million. And the reason why, because I asked him to send me his org chart, which I'll get into later, it was pages and pages of an org chart with names everywhere. And I saw way too many vice presidents. And so I was already getting a sense of what was going on here. And that's, where I came in to try and get this company right-sized and get some things out of misconceptions that he had. So that was really where it started.
So let me ask you, was your insight that his company was just too complicated? There's too many people on board? What did you see when you started working with him?
Well, when I came to, again, when he sent me all of this stuff, I just told him, I said, if you're expecting me to work with all these vice presidents and you're not going to be a part of it, I'm not coming, because without you as the owner, they're not going to buy into what I'm saying. They're going to protect the status quo. And even if they are good, they're going to go back to you and you aren't in part of the discussion. And you're going to go, what? No, we never did that. I said, so you have to be intimately involved with me as I begin to put these, what I call the foundational stones or foundation under your business.
Right.
The problem is there's only 2 types of companies I've ever worked with. Ones that are small and the owners are great, but they can't clone themselves, just like myself. My brothers couldn't clone ourselves. So they run out of hours in a day, days in a week, weeks in a month. And so they have to learn or put systems, what I call the foundation underneath their business.
Right.
And other ones are great companies that have grown exponentially, some as big as, like I said, 100 million easily, but it's just chaos. And every time they add more sales, it's like gasoline to a fire.
Yep.
And so they have to put this foundation under their business. So if you think of a pyramid for a minute, if you want to build a strong pyramid, the blocks at the bottom of it is what really makes a difference. And that's what I refer to as 7 powers. So those blocks were what was missing at his business. And the big problem there was, again, is what was he really hearing about and what was he really learning? So by the time I arrived, he had a building actually downtown in Montreal. It was beautiful. Problem with it, it was 2 stories. So I'm very firm about this. 2 stories already creates the ivory tower situation.
Right.
It was disconnected,
Right.
number one. Number two is people were sitting in the building not based on an org chart to help the flow of communication and visual accountability to the staff they work with. That was another problem. The other problem is that he was growing so big, he figured, well, I need my own interior design department. So he built this beautiful interior design department where he could have people come in and look at it. The problem is there wasn't enough activity for it. That was one of the things. And then just financially goes, well, this is getting complicated. I must need an incredible amount of financial people to work this all out. And what happened is each of the financial people would make it more difficult to prove how good they were. So they were building this awful wall, if you follow what I'm saying.
So that's very interesting. You just said something that I found interesting around the way that you structure your office. Let me just explore this a little bit with you, because I think you struck on something that's very important with all contractors, and that is the quality of their communication. So you use that phrase, communication and visual accountability, and you tied it to the way that an office is physically structured. So
yes,
can you explore that a little bit more? I find that very interesting.
Yeah, one of the first things, if you don't mind, I'll start with the story. I mean, our business was already growing, making a lot of money. But when I arrived, I was third generation in the business. My two older brothers, my dad were there, and it was just chaos. And the mantra was, we don't make any money with you sitting here. Go do something. Get out and go do something. And that's a lot. Anybody who's grown up in a family contracting business knows exactly what I'm talking about. I don't care what size business you're in.
Right.
But every day was like we were reinventing the wheel. We had no systems for it. It was just, we believed you worked hard and hopefully the money would show up. So it's not a surprise that my tagline is less stress, more success, because that's what I wanted for me.
Right.
And so, really this thing just basically started with needing to put systems in place. Well, the story is my brother, Marty, who's the financial guy who never touched a wrench or screwdriver, he gets into the office at like 6 a.m. and he gets a complaint from a customer over the phone about whatever got done. And he comes over to our service manager and starts screaming and holler at him so hard that when I arrive at 6:35, my service manager is almost on the top of the roof getting ready to jump.
Right.
And so my job becomes to walk him off the roof. I get a phone call from my vendors, and my dad raised my brothers and I that you don't get paid until the vendors get paid first. Because push comes to shove, the vendors have to be taken care of, and they will take care of you, which, by the way, he was brilliant about that. Because when Hurricane Sandy hit, my company was taken care of. Anyway, so I get a call. The guy goes, oh, I'm really sorry, to bother you. I know you guys are always great. Maybe you overlooked the bill. I hang up the phone, and I am hot as you can possibly imagine. I go to the accounts payable person, and I just rip into them. So now Marty has to walk them off the roof. So this was the conversation between Marty and I. Hey, Marty, you don't like the way things go on in the service department? You tell me and I'll fix it. And he says to me, Al, you don't like the way things are being done in the office and getting paid? You come tell me and I'll fix it. And we stop for a second and we looked at each other and go, we should actually create a chart that talks about this. And that is where the org chart for our company. And the org chart was really designed to be flat and to be just the boxes it takes to run the company, not the CFO, CIO, CTO, or any of those other titles.
Okay, so this idea, though, of visual accountability, just tell me exactly what you mean by that.
So once you have this org chart, if I'm the service manager or if I'm the install manager, where I sit needs to be in visual accountability to those who report to me. So if I'm an install manager, I need to be nearby where the install coordinator is, where I be meeting my install team every day. If I'm the service manager, I need to be meeting with the dispatcher and also seeing the service tech. So I have that visual accountability all day. And this is what sounds weird. The marketing manager, who's in charge of the right amount of calls and right people at the right time, 3 rights, I call it, they are actually next to where the call takers are. Right. Because if the call takers blow the calls, then the way I describe it is, because when I think like a plumber, is I'm trying to fill a bathtub up with great leads. And you, the CSRs, are the drain that's wide open to those.
Right.
So them being in close proximity. Same thing for the financial manager, close to the bean team, accounts payable, accounts receivable. And it's visual accountability both ways. And so that we have this thing. So the best offices, you could stand at one side of the building and look all the way to the back. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have some closed doors, you can't close the rest of it, but it's filled with glass and it's open and discussion area. And this really is the way that you get that thing. That's actually called the flow of communication, which is the next piece off the org chart. So where you sit in the building, you should never just plop it down. Once you create this org chart I'm talking about, the very next step is to create what I call the flow of communication, which is everybody, the box on that org chart has itself in the middle, and who do they talk to, very shorthand, to make sure that they're talking to the right person. So Eric, the example I would use is, I'm the install manager, is just one of my million jobs years ago, and they would complain to me about their paycheck, but I'm not the one. They were supposed to go see the accounts payable person. So everybody is talking to the wrong person, if you follow what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. So the sister to this is flow of communication. But when you do have that flow of communication, you have that org chart tied together, then your building can be just so great.
So it's interesting. Let me just interrupt you there, Al, because I think it's interesting how you tie the health of an organization and the effectiveness of the organization to the way that the company is actually physically laid out. And you made this point, which I think is very important for people to think about, is not creating this divide between management or leadership and the rest of the organization, but flattening it in such a way so that that communication can be facilitated throughout a company. Now, let me take you back to the org chart, because you made a point to differentiate between an org chart that's dominated by titles and an org chart that is structured in terms of functions. Just so that the audience is clear, what are those key functions that populate the top of the org chart there?
Well, actually, I'm a bottom-up management company, not top-down.
Great. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So bottom-up is, again, like the pyramid. It's the bigger and stronger you are at the bottom, the further and bigger this thing can go. Mm-hmm. So apprentices, because we always hired new, young, willing people and trained them our way rather than always trying to work with retreads.
Yep.
And so once we were able to provide skills at every position in your company, those boxes I refer to, mm-hmm. then you build them the right way, build them from scratch, rather than trying to constantly rewire people, which is exhausting. Employees come in three ways. Your existing people, and you have to find the holes in their knowledge and make it safe for them to share it with you. And so this is where, standard operating procedures and manuals and training really are critical, but they need to know what box are they occupying on that org chart, and what is the activities that go on 80% of the time, not the 20 weird. They're never going to cover 100. And job descriptions are just very weak, because I already know what your job description says. You will be this, you'll be kind, you'll be this. So subjective, number one, and they hate it. Number two, you have a bullet in there that says etc., which means that you always have a hook to come back and add something in. Right. So be them for 1 second. I'll tell you what they share with me when I come in, because I have private meetings with them, or I won't come. What I always find out is they hate these job descriptions because they didn't sign on for that. If you add one more bullet to this bulleted job description you gave me, I feel put upon. Now, contrast that with if you are the person who answers the calls, or you're an installer, or you're a field supervisor, you have a manual, covers 80% of it. We go through it together. We read it out loud. We discuss it so that we're clear. And then that's what I hold you accountable to. But the trick to this is the management people being the financial manager, which in my opinion should always be an owner. The marketing manager, which should also be an owner. And I'll come back to that, Eric, if you remind me. I'll come back and share why that is. There's also warehouse, fleet management, and then sales manager is really a critical position, because they control big ticket sales, which is what the construction trade is all about. And then the fulfillment section, which is what I call the install wing. So I'm the sales manager. One hand, my left hand is the sales wing to make sure it got sold right. And my right hand is the install wing or fulfillment wing to make sure that I delivered on time as promised. So what I call projected labor material versus actual labor material. Did you hit your gross profit target? So when I work with big construction companies, and new construction is obviously big, and even in our trade, our goal is not to do work for exercise. We're already pretty good at that. The goal is to be as efficient as we can be so that we can get profit out of it. Okay, so let me interrupt you. You got the financial box, the marketing box, you've got the sales box, the install box, and then what was the other one? Should be service manager. Who's in charge of anything related to service. Okay. So now the way that I think of a construction company is I've got to find the work, I've got to plan and build the work, and then I've got to get paid for it. So all these boxes are encompassed in those, what I just said. I want to ask you why you said
that the financial person and the marketing person need to be an owner. Tell me why. And are you linking marketing and sales together, or are you separating them?
I separate them.
Okay, so
I will share this one thing: is sales and marketing are like two sides of a coin.
Sure.
They're related.
Okay, so let me just Let me just interrupt you there. Tell me why. I find that very interesting. Why do you say the financial person and the marketing person need to be an owner?
So they're at the top of the org chart. At the end of this, it's your money, and you need to make sure that you are not being, trying to think of a nice word. How about BS? Hosed. You're not being hosed. Yep. And it happens all the time, Eric. I'm sure you've seen it as well. Yep. I figure I have such a big company, I must need a guy with a lot of letters at the end, or a woman with all these letters at the end of it, because I can't figure this out. And the answer is, if you can't look at that sheet and the information that's coming to you is not timely and they won't help you, more times than not, they're trying to hide stuff. Going back to the Montreal story, that's exactly what happened.
Tell me about that.
As a matter of fact, when I came in, after I had this discussion with the person I was working with, he comes in, and the first minute I'm in the office, we sit in the office and we're talking, and he goes, I have a surprise for you. I go, what's the surprise? He goes, I fired a whole bunch of those vice presidents. I said, okay. He goes, you want to know what I found? I said, yeah, you found out that they were lying to you. They were telling you that the business was doing better than it really was. He goes, yeah, that's exactly what happened. I said, well, here's what I have to share with you. I don't blame them. I blame you, because you didn't have your finger on the pulse of the financial thing. So I told him, here's what you have to do as part of this. I want you to actually be signing checks. And this is a big company already. I said, you need to be signing checks so you know where the money's flowing in and out. Now, that's not forever by any measure. Well, here's the funny part of it. Because he finally saw the money flowing in and out, and he loved it so much, he wouldn't give it up. And I said, you have to give it up. But ultimately, you need to be able to look at these numbers and know where you are at any given moment. So my friend Ellen Rohr, who's a great financial person, says that you are in a financial car. And if you're waiting on data that's old from your accountants, it's like driving your car by looking through the rearview mirror. Yep. Instead of looking out the front. Okay.
So in your mind then, and what you work with, give me your top 3 financial metrics that a construction company needs to track.
I think they need to know their labor, which has always been the biggest part of it. Labor, basically on percentage. Where do you go? And for, again, construction type work, I always think of when your salespeople projected how much material there was, projected how much labor, and you gave them a gross profit target. Somebody else on the inside needs to go actual labor, actual material, actual gross profit, so that we know
estimated versus actual. That's a key metric.
And those breakdowns. Yes.
Yes. Estimated versus actual. Is there another one that you would say is key?
Yeah. For me, people always love to tell me about how profitable they are. The net profit. You know what? The first thing that I really want to know is 2 things. What's the gross sales and what's the gross profit? Because I can kill anybody's net profit. All I have to do is just pay you more. Take care of, stuff around your house. I can kill all your net profits. It's not really what I need to know. But you could have top line great sales and not any of it falling to the profit. There's plenty of companies I've worked with that have these beautiful high ticket numbers and there's no money. Some of them are even worse than that, Eric. Right. They're losing money.
Yep.
And the other way around is some of them have great profit, but it's not enough to cover the net or grow big enough. That's why the gross profit. So those are really the 2 most important numbers. Until I see them, there's no reason to dig much further.
Okay. So just to recap there, those 2 numbers is estimated versus actual, and then the gross sales versus the gross profits.
I want gross sales and gross profits, not
Yeah. Gross sales and gross profits. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
They have to be there because ultimately every year you should be doing a budget that sets your, goals to hit that metric and then breaks it up through the course of the year. Unfortunately, I was not so enlightened years ago when I was in my own business.
You're right.
We were, look, we always get smart. Hopefully we get smarter. But, for years and years, we would have the accountants walk in, about the last month of the year and they go, hey, we had a great year this year. You guys go buy yourself some trucks and tools and we're paying you a bonus. And that was a really happy meeting. But unfortunately, there were other years where they walk in and go, you know what? This year isn't as great as it needs to be. We need to make sure that the money's there for the banks and all the rest of it. I hope you guys have money in your own bank account because you're not getting paid for the next month.
So let me ask you this. As an owner then, how often do I need to be checking the estimated versus actual in my business?
I would say every week.
Every week.
Actually, that's a formal meeting that every week, where you need to know if you won or lost. And you can actually go job by job. And
Yes.
This is something that you should be doing anyway, but you're talking about that. I would call that a deadline by the end of the week. I should have a pretty good idea about where we're tracking.
And the same with the gross sales and
money.
What about the gross sales? What about the gross sales and the gross profits?
I should be seeing that should be falling, depending on any good software these days should be giving you a pretty good look at it. So yeah.
Okay. I get the financial one because obviously it's your money. Now, what I'm really intrigued with is the marketing one. You say you should have an owner in marketing. So talk about that, please.
And I get a lot of pushback.
Yes.
At every level that I've ever had to go, I'm not a marketing guy. Why do I have to do this? And I go, I understand that. But somehow you really understand this business or you never would have reached this point. Right. You know what differentiates you. You know what your ideal customer is. You know who you need to be targeting. If I told you to pick me 3 of your best customers, you'd give it to me in a second in great description. Your marketing team cannot be successful at what I call the 3 rights, is the right amount of calls from the right customer at the right time.
Right.
Me overloading you and then nothing, overloading you, then nothing is not what you're after.
Stop. I just want to, you said something there that caught my attention. Right call, right customer, right? The right amount of calls, the right amount of customers. But now you said something very interesting there. The right time. What do you mean by that?
Well, most of us as contractors, we're busy, knock out the work. We got a ton of calls and all of a sudden the phone goes dead. And so what I learned late in life, because I was lucky enough to get hooked up with a really great marketing person, really just basically changed my life 25 years ago, is that you need a marketing calendar, which is actually going backwards, Eric. So you start at the end of the year and you work your way back. So let's just say, you need a certain amount of referrals, right? You need to get with whoever you're working for.
Yep.
And you need to be marketing them. You have a commercial sales agent or somebody out there that's working these relationships over and over. Because if you don't work them, somebody else is whispering in their ear sweet nothings and you won't have them anymore. Or there are new people arriving in the market you need to be going after.
Right.
But so you start at the end of the year and you begin to back up as to when you need to create more of these leads. Now you may have marketing pieces. You may take them out to go to games or whatever you do. This all has to be part of this marketing calendar. I would say for me, the thing when we talk about marketing, it's always a marketing plan and that plan has to be in writing. Digital by all means, but it has to be kept up. And that needs to be looked at least once a week. And then have a real monthly meeting about marketing to make sure that you're always proactively marketing through the year. The reality is,
go ahead.
Yeah, the reality is I was in the fortunate position of having way more calls than I could humanly do in a day. But I had learned my lesson about just not assuming that forever. And if I have more calls than I can humanly do in a day, and you have more construction jobs than you can humanly do in a day or week or month, then you get to set who you go to work for,
right,
and how much you get paid. That's really a big difference because you already know people who are willing to throw money at you, but they never pay,
right,
or they don't pay what they should, or they always negotiate at the end of the deal when the job is done.
Okay, so let's just explore this a little bit more. The owner in the marketing seat, and I think you spoke to it well there, it's because the owner wouldn't be where they are with their business if they didn't understand their core clients, what they do uniquely for them. What I find very interesting many times is that the owner understands that, but other people in the business do not understand that. And the owner is always fighting against these sort of crap leads, so to speak, that are coming in, or these, the BD guys saying, I've got this wonderful project that we should build, which has nothing to do with the core focus of my company, right client, right job, right location. Is that why it's so important for the owner to be in that marketing seat, really driving those conversations?
Yeah, you totally nailed it. And, what I try to, again, when I'm working, when I want to explain to look, I don't want you to do any marketing campaign. That's not what I hear, but you need to be talking to the right people, either in-house or better yet, outsource, so that if they're not doing it, they're not delivering, and they're not performing based on the metrics you gave them, then you can replace them with somebody else. But if you don't have a marketing manual that has your marketing budget, which I prefer as a percentage of sales, because this way the numbers get scary when you get to 100 million, 200 million, or whatever it is, you still have to have a percentage of sales. I like marketing driver, marketing allocation, which just means what are the three main ways you're going to market? That doesn't mean you can't do more than that, but what gets the bulk of your time, energy, and money? So
Right.
the three drivers. And here's what I was saying before, where almost everyone, including yours truly, falls down, is we forget about the marketing calendar. What's driving us proactively through the year to energize those vehicles, to be measuring the lead source, tracking, all of that stuff, which has gotten way easier because of computer software.
Sure. So let me ask you this then. In your experience, is there a specific percentage of sales that should be allocated to marketing, or does it vary from company to company?
It does depend on, no, it doesn't depend on the company. It depends on the segment that you're working in. But a rule of thumb, if you'll take it as a rule of thumb,
Please.
Typically it's about 10% of sales that you're after is usually what you're looking for to be aggressive.
Okay.
4% used to be, these people are never going to call me. They moved, they quit, we're unhappy, they left you. And that also the goal, of course, with every new construction company that I've worked with is how much of your business is coming from just one or two clients.
Right.
Because as much as they love you, when the day their administration change or they sell or they don't love you, you're the one that's vulnerable. So I always worked to make sure that I had multiple sources of revenue and stream and clients.
Okay, so I think that's quite an interesting rule of thumb there, that 10%. So you're saying that if I'm a $100 million contractor, I need to be spending $10 million on sales and marketing annually.
Which is why I say if you get attached to a percentage, whatever percentage you come down to, it's much better because you're 100 million right now. When you get to 200 million and I come back later on, you're going to tell me, well, I don't understand. I'm spending 15 million now. I used to spend 10. And I go, it's the percentage that changed.
Right.
And so depending on how proactive you want to grow your business,
right.
And that's really what this comes down to.
Yeah.
How proactive do you? And that's sometimes, of course, a lot of us, and I know myself of being guilty of that, is I never really pushed the gas pedal as hard as I could have until I finally felt I had found the holes in my existing staff and fixed them.
Right.
The new hired people, I found their holes and fixed it. And ultimately, I gave that up to become just build people from scratch, provide the skills they are, and let's see how far they can go. And once I grew that confidence, then I was able to just, pile down on the pedal. I was able to go into multiple trades, a lot of things that I could never have done until I got that set up.
Yeah, so that's interesting because, it's all well and good to fill the top of the funnel, but if you can't execute it, then it's garbage in, garbage out kind of thing.
Worse than that, you damage your reputation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So tell me about those three drivers then. What are those three drivers?
Well, going primarily with home service type companies.
Sure.
Typically today it's really all about the internet. SEO, SEM, how good is your website?
Yeah.
Pay-per-click. There's a lot of those things that go in there. And there's, LSAs from Google and such. Those are some of the primary drivers.
Right.
But the funny thing is a lot of people think, well, print media must be bad. The answer is no. Bad print is wrong. So what works really well in our business today, because we're trying to reach the homeowner, is a direct mail postcard, oversized.
Right. Yep.
And the problem for you, the construction people, is they have somebody opening up the mail who you're trying to reach.
Right.
And so what you need to do, and this worked great for me, is I found my ideal audience, and I used to send the USPS priority pack mailers with a lot of stuff put in there.
Right.
And I would address it to the owner because the guard dog who's checking the mail is very unlikely to open up that priority package. You with me?
Yep.
So if it's $5 or $6 or whatever, now make sure it's of value.
Yes.
Now, what you're putting in there, make sure that, and value is in marketing. I can tell you how great I am, Eric, and I was really good. But what you really want to know is what do my customers who look like me say about Al?
Yeah.
So the same thing applies to you. And that's what, again, the condo builder did so well is he had enormous testimonials from people who bought his stuff because we worked really hard on pictures, testimonials, video, and putting all of that out there in every way that we could humanly do so. And the same thing goes for you is if you were talking to me because who is the number one audience, would you say, Eric, that they're trying to reach the construction guys?
Well, the construction, if you're a general contractor, you're looking to reach the owners of the companies that are looking to build their buildings, or a developer. If you're a subcontractor, you're looking to get to the president of the GC, the general contractor who's going to be working with you.
So the better your list is, and the better you know that name, And the better you find that out, so it's not dear sir or Mr. or whatever, then you can use these priority packs. You've got to find a way to get past the person who reads their mail.
So I just want to summarize this.
LinkedIn, by the way, is really a great source for this.
I just want to make really clear here, because you're hitting on some key points here. For a lot of commercial contractors, people aren't like Googling, I need to build $100 million project. I know, and we laugh, but what's important for you as a commercial contractor is to make that list, just like you said, Al, of your top, let's say 20 or 30 target clients. Know the final decision maker, the money guy or the money gal, and then put together unique marketing materials targeted at that individual. And like you said, Al, very well, and let me just repeat it so people get it. Make sure you have testimonials, make sure you have white papers or studies. And what I would encourage you to do is to do those unique physical mailers that will get past the gatekeeper into the hands of the person who's making the decisions. And you do that, like you said so well, Al, with priority mailings. So that's excellent.
Eric, I think that was a great recap. Let me just add one thing, because it reminded me so I would ask guys to do this and they go, it didn't work. I go, how many times did you do it? Well, yes. I sent it to them once.
Yes.
And so if you don't send it 3 times, in my opinion, if you don't send it at least 3 times, it was worthless. Don't even send the first one.
Yes. So fundamental here. Fundamental. You must persist in this, especially if it's something that you're uncomfortable with, that you've never tried before. You try it once, it doesn't work, and then you just blow it off because, some dude or some consultant told me that, or, hold on a second. You must persist in your marketing efforts at least 3 or 4 times to see if it works. So that's excellent, Al. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I have a quick story if we have a minute. Just my dad was never pushy, very quiet. He spoke about like this loud, and people would lean in when he would speak this way. And you can tell, obviously, I'm not him.
Yeah, right.
But he would stop at, to us, our referral sources were houses of worship, churches, synagogues, places like that, because he knew they held his customers, as well as serving their facility. Because again, we were residential, commercial, industrial. And he would just stop by every week or a couple of weeks, stop in. One of them actually said, Herb, we love seeing you, but we feel bad because we're not switching. He goes, you know what? I like stopping here. And you never know, something might happen. It was 2 years. A night comes up. They can't get heat in the place. They tried their own people. They can't do it. My dad calls me and my brother Richie. We run out to the job. We fix it. We had that customer for life. And that one customer must have fed us at least 500 people that it was in their circle, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
And so this idea about it, and consultants have plenty of analogies, but the one I always go back to is you're swinging an axe at an iceberg and it's exhausting. And the next, you say, maybe I should quit. Here's my thought. The next one you swing will crack that iceberg wide open.
Yes. Yeah. And this is fundamental. It's so fundamental that you have to, once you've identified your target market and once you've built projects for that market, you must persist in marketing to that market, because if you do that persistence, then that's where the long-term returns, like you're describing there, Al, come in. That's excellent. I want to take you back here. We've talked about financials, and marketing. I want to take you back to this idea of the org chart. And let's say someone has really tried to sort their business out before and it hasn't worked. Why doesn't it work? When someone knows I'm in chaos, I'm going to try something, maybe they spend a bunch of money on a consultant or a coach and it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work?
I would say the biggest problem is it information or implementation?
Okay.
The answer is good information implemented really well is really what you're after. And what happens is, because there's so many sources, like a great podcast we're doing here today, or you read my articles, you read columns, you listen to my, radio broadcast things.
Yep.
Or, but the problem is you start pulling pieces from everywhere.
Right.
So it's what I call the Frankenstein approach. Or imagine if you were trying to build your dream business and it's now a dream car. So would you use a Ford chassis, Toyota seats, a Hyundai engine? But that's what they do, Eric. They start pulling pieces from all over and they don't necessarily fit. So that's what you have to be careful. You have to measure that as part of it. The other thing is that, thinking that I need an org chart. I hear you, Al. And let me just go to the 4 reasons why, as an employee, that I would care about your org chart. Number one is, where am I today on your org chart? That's what I want to know. Number two is you said I have a career here, not a job, because that makes you the employer of choice. So where can I go with you in the future? Then everybody here acts like my boss. No matter where I go down the hallway, everybody's yelling at me. So who really is my boss? And the last reason I care about your org chart is if I need help, who can I go to? Now, if you have an operations manual, standard operating procedures, which is what I always preach, for each one of those boxes. So think of the org chart as a bingo board. Your job is to cover every square with a manual to it. Again, 80%. Also, Eric, speaking to why owners get in trouble, like me, I was a perfectionist. And most of us who are contractors at any level, the reason we got ahead is because we were really good and we were perfectionists. But it's a double-edged sword, is if you're always waiting for this to be perfect, you're never going to get it out of the garage.
Right.
So while you're building your dream car, my car just finished the race and I beat the heck out of you. That's part of the issue here too.
That's really good. I want to explore one thing with you here. You mentioned here, where am I and where can I go? And one of my clients just popped into my mind, and they're a large company and they have a lot of terrific people working for them. And it can be, when you look at the org chart, you can look at yourself. Let's say I'm a middle manager and I can look where to go. And it seems like there's a ceiling in some organizations. If I'm an ambitious person, an energetic person, and there's more than one person who could fill the next role above me, and perhaps I don't get picked, how do you handle that dynamic in terms of where I can go and making sure that you're not losing talent just because there's only so many seats in the organization?
Such a great question. You know, when I created the field supervisor position at my company, which is different than in the construction trade, my field supervisors, they actually get their crew, they make sure they're running, they're doing the rest of the stuff. And then they pitch in or they run their own job. They're just the first line of support, because without a good field supervisor, everybody's trying to go through one person, which becomes the choke point. So we created, in our case, apprentice, tech, senior tech, field supervisor, service manager, or they go up the install wing as an apprentice, installer, senior installer, install field supervisor, install manager. And guys could also swing over to the big ticket sales, which we call system advisor, but there's multiple levels, or what I call a commercial sales advisor, system advisor. And basically that person is the one who goes out and presses the flesh, gets those new customers, keeps the relationships open, which is vital to anyone, but in your trade, it is super vital. And that position has to be really, and they're two different things. Don't expect the person who's selling the big jobs to be the same person as the one who's breaking bread, getting past the person they have to get to so that they can see the boss, if you will, the people you mentioned before.
Right. So how do you handle those conversations with someone who, let's say they are talented, they're good people, you want them to be in the organization, but then they get passed up for that next step, and perhaps they're getting frustrated, and perhaps they're thinking, is there a long-term future here? How do you handle those conversations?
That's really good, because part of it, the Confucius thing, when you point a finger, four came back at you. I used to blame them, not blame myself for what was going on. And it was me that was the problem. And so when we built the org chart, finally, I realized, and actually, when I would hire people, I would go, there is enormous opportunity. Take a look at this org chart with me. I would show that to them in the recruiting hiring process, as well as the tour of my great shop, and because it was impressive. And then I would explain this couple of seats you'll never fill unless your last name is Levi.
Right.
I said, but don't worry, because we have one main shop and we have three main spokes all on Long Island. And if you're so good, we will do more. We will add more spokes. That's how we look at it. So that's what I kind of gave them as the carrot to reach up. And also, we've had field supervisors, because field supervisors is a rented position, as is system engineer and sales, all these key positions, because you cannot fail in that position forever. Because if you do, you sabotage. Remember, I said it's a bottom-up experience, that you can't sit at the top and cause an issue for everybody at the bottom. So my goal as an owner is to get you good or get you gone. And it sounds more vicious than it is, but it's not.
Yeah.
If you're failing, it's really the worst thing in the world to keep you on, but it sabotages stuff. So I've got that goal. That's what I would do with them. And then again, it's really up to me as an owner is, if this is all working great, you know what, I'm in Kansas. What about the next state?
Right. That's good. So we've covered a lot of territory here. We've talked about some very interesting things in terms of visual accountability, the need for owners to be in the finance and marketing box. We've talked about this idea here of where I am and where I can go in the future. If I'm a contractor and I'm looking to bring some order in the midst of this chaos, and I want to begin by looking at the org chart and the standard operating procedures, like you were talking about, the manuals, what are some first steps that I should be taking?
Well, the org chart, number one, what I call the box org chart.
Yep.
So you get all the boxes like we talked about. And then once you say, yes, that's it, then you do a save as, and then you create what I call a depth chart, DEPTH, because it gets lost in my accent.
Yeah.
Is that, think of you guys play football, the center gets hurt. What are we, not snapping the ball? There's people that are cross-trained. So for every position on your org chart, every position on your org chart, once you have manual standard operating procedures, you can cross-train other people to handle multiple positions. That's really it. The most important is, to me, making sure whoever answers the phone builds momentum for your company. So when I call your company, does it sound like you interrupted my day? Because a good CSR really knows how to build sales momentum. Make sure that they know they made the right call. We don't botch this opportunity. It's big for anybody, but it's extremely big for construction people. And then making sure that we pass the call along to the right way and have procedures for that to where it needs to get to, whether it's the sales department or dispatcher, if it's job or install coordinator, because they're already in. And then for me as a technician at your company who does the work, I need to know what I need to know from the time I woke up to the time I go to bed, other than the actual construction work, because these are where you drop the ball. And that's what affects everything. It's not that you don't need to know what you need to know in terms of the trade you do, how to build a house, how to build office buildings, how to build any of it. Of course you do. But if I can't answer the calls the right way, if I can't, dispatch, get permits, do all the things I need to do right, and get a tech out to fully understand what, how to run that call, how to cover stuff, how to do the things they need to do, how to arrive safely. I worked with a great commercial roofer. We wrote a whole section about how to hook up the trailer.
Right.
It's not like a minor thing, but of course it's not, because the trailer really makes a big difference as to how to do that safely, and even the boom rest.
So what you're covering here is, in these manuals, is to make sure that you've got 80% of what a job function is to do, and so that it's crystal clear to people so they understand what they need to execute on every day.
Yep.
This idea of depth chart, I just want to touch on this in terms of a succession plan, because I find in working with contractors that succession planning is really difficult. Just like a sports team, it's difficult to maintain a high level of performance over many years. And let's say I pick someone who's going to take my position. I'm always uncomfortable when a contractor just has one person who they're thinking about in their company to take their position. What is your view in terms of how someone should be looking at succession planning, specifically in terms of who's going to take over those higher level positions in a company?
I think, again, with the org chart, it's really helpful. And the depth chart is already setting you up as to who is eligible. And I firmly agree with you, Eric. I wouldn't put all my eggs in one basket. Mm-hmm. So again, I gave 3 years notice, which is always very funny in a seminar, because most of us get 2 weeks or a week or nothing. And so I spent that time to bring on other people to replace me, which I knew I needed to do. So because I wasn't going to leave my brothers and my dad in a bad spot. Right. And I was going off to do what I was going to do, and I wasn't coming back. Right. The reality was, because we had these systems, we were able to cross-train and get people up. So anyway, I pick a guy who's our install manager, very key position in our company, grooming him to take the spot. It was 1 month before I'm ready to leave. He comes to me, he says, I feel really bad. I go, what do you feel bad about? He goes, I got offered a job by one of the manufacturer's reps, so I won't be around. And I thought to myself, Eric, well, that's bad. But if I was one of the other employees here, what would I think is, oh, Al's leaving, and now this guy's leaving. Maybe I should pack up and go too. Yeah. I brought them all in to a meeting as soon as possible. And here's exactly what I said. I gave you notice. I know I'm leaving. You knew I was leaving. This fellow, Jake, just got a wonderful opportunity. We wish him well, and he's going to be leaving. Now, if I were you, this is what I would be thinking. Maybe I should leave too. But here's what you're not thinking about. Take a look at the org chart for a second with me. You see those boxes that the two of us are exiting? Those boxes are now open for you guys to step up. We didn't lose anyone, Eric. Zero. But to anoint or appoint people, so like field supervisor I was talking about, is a lower level to this. I don't let companies appoint people, because if you appoint somebody, here's what it tells the rest of us. Oh, of course, Eric got the field supervisor job. He bowls with the owner. I had no chance, whether that's true or not.
But let me ask you, let me just interrupt you, Al, because I think this is really important. If you had to do that succession all over again, the Jake succession, knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently to try and avoid the situation where he came in a month before you were going to leave?
I would have had two candidates. Although I'll tell you what I did do when I left, I had hired bought 3 plumbing companies out. So I had 3 plumbing companies. So I was never going to be hostage to one person.
And so did you, hold on a second.
One of my mantras is always train 2.
Yeah, no, that's good. So then in that specific situation, did you still leave in a month?
Not me. He left in a month.
He left in a month. And how much time did you have left?
I was going to be going in about a month or 2 myself.
Okay, but so did you still leave?
I still left on time.
Who took your place?
Actually, I had a couple of people because on the org chart, they took a couple of the slots that I was leaving.
Interesting. Oh, so you divided the responsibility up?
Yep.
I see. Okay.
Because you can be in multiple boxes. Actually, I advocate in multiple boxes, either as a first string or even if you're third string. Like, for instance, I was really great at sales. Right. And my team was really good at blowing them up, which is why I got so good at manuals and systems.
Yeah, right.
But the point of it is, I realized one day that to a $20 million company, my selling another $500,000, even as a part-time job, is not going to make a difference. Yeah. I finally systematized the big ticket salesperson where I trained 3 guys and they each sold $1 million a piece. That's where the leverage comes.
Yep. Okay. So we're wrapping up here, Al. Lots of great insights. How can people get in touch with you if they'd like to?
The best thing is 7powercontractor.com, the number 7powercontractor.com. And right there's a spot you can chat me, and I'm really good about responding. So if you have a question or concern, but right there on the site, I've got a lot of really good blogs and information. Yes, I know they're mine, but they're born with all the scars that I've had in business. And now, of course, doing this 18 years of consulting with businesses that I was never in, but it's all more alike than unalike. So that's really a great place. I do have a book that talks about these 7 powers. It's really slim. And if you're like me, there's Audible. So you can listen if you love this voice that you've been hearing.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Al, I really appreciate you taking time to meet with us, to chat with us. Let me just ask you this. I know you're in the Scottsdale area. I have many friends who love to go down for spring training. If someone's going down for spring training, we're in the post-COVID world. Let's just assume, where are they going to go to eat?
I would say if you want to really impress somebody, your significant other, take them to Cafe Monarch. Yeah, Cafe Monarch. It's expensive, but it's worth every penny.
Yep.
It's really, really pretty. And the food matches, which sometimes you don't get those too.
Yep.
But yeah, bring money and you'll have a great time. And I'm sure you'll have a great dinner and whoever you're with will enjoy it. Hey, I just had a quick second. I wanted to share one other thing with the end of that story about the success of the turnaround.
Yeah, please do.
So we finished this turnaround. He's just had explosive growth. But one of the
This is the one in Montreal, right?
Montreal.
Yeah.
I taught him about the power of outsourcing the right way and using steps of delegation.
Yep.
And he realized we got rid of the interior design. We got rid of the in-house legal counsel. We got rid of this 5,000 depths of financial people. And he was able to finally, grow and scale up when the jobs are there and scale down when he needs to. Yep. And he's been just killing it ever since.
That's beautiful. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time here, Al. There's tons of great insights for the audience to take away. And we're going to make sure we link in the show notes to your website so people can contact you. And thank you very much for joining us here today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome. Today's episode was brought to you by the Construction Conclave. If you as a construction leader would like to develop your skills and get involved in a community of like-minded construction professionals who are focused on building healthy teams, profitable projects, and long-term successful businesses, then the Construction Conclave is for you. It's a private, invitation-only group of construction leaders that are focused on developing their leadership skills. We do training every single month online that looks at how to become a better leader in a very practical, straightforward way. We also have other events that build community and camaraderie so that you can associate with others who are interested in developing their skills as leaders. If you'd like more information and to see if you qualify for participating in the conclave, feel free to reach out to me, eric@ericanderton.com. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes, share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit, and thanks again for listening.